Shout out to audience member Jelani Woods, who put this, Jelani Wood, who put this and said, what's so hilarious to me in all of this, VG, and I'll give you the context, let me just read this, is that technology that they're talking about, machine learning, FSR, and PSSR, and all that fake frame stuff, is if you look at the top games being played, all I can help think was, how is this going to help Counter-Strike? How is this going to help Fortnite? How is this going to help Call of Duty? How is this going to help Rocket League? How is this going to help Marvel Rivals? These are all online competitive community games that rely on low latency and real-time rendering, two things that frame generation induces highly. So again, I ask for the vast majority of gamers, what good is any of this technology and buzzwords they're talking about really going to be? Also, no matter what they say here, what's in the PS6 that's going to be virtually identical to what's in the next Xbox and in the next handhelds and whichever the cutting-edge APU from AMD is right now. Same as a PS5. They were acting like the hard drive was some alien technology, but you can replace it with an off-the-shelf SSD like 6 months later. And the motherboards and setup for the Series X and PS5 are basically identical. I can't wait for this hogwash to be over. Now, the context here is, we're looking at this so-called tease of AMD's PlayStation's Mark Cerny and AMD's, I think his name is something Hune, where they were talking about Project Amethyst and all this, and Digital Foundry was sitting there blowing flowers all over it as if it's some kind of a huge thing. But the reality is, when we look at a lot of these so-called implementations in terms of frame rates and blah, 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 and blah, 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 we'll realize a majority of the video games that are actually being played by people barely use any of this functionality. This stuff is just marketing bogus BS. I told and I warned the community of gamers that this talk about next gen was a bunch of fugazi, but many of them would not believe me. They said, oh, next gen means it has features that blah, 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 blah. And I was like, bro, you guys aren't even really understanding that. These guys are just selling you everything based on all the big junk words that they can put together, when in reality, you don't really need it. And it brings me to the conversation right now that we're seeing online, which is about FromSoftware. Apparently, look at the news article and people are like, huh? What are you surprised about? FromSoftware is reported, right, to be working on a game that has basically reached, a very significant milestone in terms of its development. Jay Wood actually said this. They said, somehow, FromSoftware can release Elden Ring, Armored Core 6, Duskbloods, Night Rain, and possibly another unannounced game in a 4-year stretch. Meanwhile, the rest of the industry struggles to release a single game without taking 5 to 8 years. Do you know why that is taking them that long? They're busy complaining about Gamepass. They won't shut up about, my industry, blah, 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 instead of actually grinding and making the game. And you know what's even funny? Those of us that are gamers here in the West, we sit down and we continue to even take this nonsense excuses from them. Like, whenever you bring up FromSoftware, do you know what people will tell me? And I'm probably going to see it in the comment section. Someone's already typing it. Oh, Japanese developers usually make their games based on crunch. Homie, let me go ahead and kind of sort this thing out for you. They want to put the genie back in the bottle after they build the industry on crunch? I'm asking. They want to put that genie back in the bottle after the Western developers, who were insane in terms of pushing out some really crazy titles, pushing technology, and pushing cutting edge, advances, and even making multiple game titles, they want to now put that genie back in the bottle? If they want to put the genie back in the bottle, what circumstances would be ideal for them to put such a genie back in a bottle? These circumstances of these games? You really want to sit there for 6 to 8 years when Call of Duty is going to make $4 billion by the time your game comes out? Really? And people come out and say, well, it's crunch. I don't think it's crunch. I think it's good focus and good management and good planning and ensuring that you can iterate based on systems that you've already built and mastered in your studio and in your team. That's one of the reasons, obviously, Call of Duty is successful, because they churn the freaking thing out every year. That's the reason FIFA and WWE and freaking Madden and all the others are sitting on top of your necks. Because in terms of development and production, they have a production pipeline that they've streamlined so heavy to churn new titles out of the box. However, a lot of game development firms in the West don't even have anything legacy that they've pushed through over years that they can, like clockwork, continue to pump out there. Yeah. What's funny is FromSoftware is that company where there's a lot of crossover, mechanics and systems in their games. I remember after playing Elden Ring, I picked up Dark Souls, and it was so intuitive. I was like, they literally made another Dark Souls game on a large scale. That's what they did. Night Rain is Elden Ring. I played Night Rain for like 30 minutes. I think the only reason I haven't played Night Rain, guys, is two things. I got it in there and I saw Morgoth, the freaking bugger, as the first boss. I was like, I wasn't expecting him, and two, time. But don't worry. Hopefully, I'm intending to go back if I can put some time together. But I bought it because I was down. I was interested. I was like, I don't care what anything they make, I'm buying. I bought Armored Core 6. I haven't played more than, a certain number of hours of it too. Time has basically, you know how it is, backlog. But I'm supporting these guys because they're pumping out games rather than whining about Gamepass and the industry and is this sustainable, blah, 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 blah. They are making games. That's why Jay Wood over here, that's why you're complaining and saying somehow Western developers can't pull this off, yet developers out there in, FromSoftware can actually do this kind of cadence, because FromSoftware, you don't hear them complaining. You don't see their devs on Twitter whining about the Series S. It was only in the West that everything is a complaint. Keep whining. Keep it up and see how many games you get out there. Not saying that there are not developers in the West that aren't making good games or are releasing at a high cadence. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the more you whine, the less people even can take you seriously. Stay in the shadows. That's what makes game development fun, and the mystery behind it is nice. But you see a lot of the media and the press always wanting to foment some drama. FromSoftware is almost never in the conversation in that regard. They just make their game, lock it to 60 FPS and say enjoy. That's it. They're not bothering with FSR 7 and blah, 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 blah. They just make the game and move on. And here we are, people marveling at a development firm actually developing games. Their games are scoped well, except for some that are insane. I don't know how they did Elden Ring. Guys. I have no idea. But they built it on the back of Dark Souls. You say it, but it's years and years of work. Right? Slowly iterating, but having something to bring to the market at any given time. It reeks of clear focus. There's nothing else that it reeks of. Yet here in the West, it takes so long to make these games. Because the games, people probably get discouraged when they start seeing problems or seeing all kinds of challenges between year 1 and year 2, and nothing has actually been, pulled out the ground. And so they move to another studio or another project where they think that something's going to work. Look at Wonder Woman. After all that noise, the whole freaking thing got canceled. So I got to ask and say, I think the Western devs and the Western publishers or whatever it is, I think they're putting it all on themselves. I strongly believe that the people that are in charge of management and such, and the people that are, funding and doing all, I think they're all just basically running amok and doing all of the wrong things, or many, many wrong things, rather than focusing on the thing that's going to actually get games to your users. I'm done, man. I just don't know what else to say. This to me is just shocking that, it's now a huge bone of contention in some regard. Tom Henderson put it out here, right? Put it out here. Talk to me in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Peace out.